welcome to the Earthkeepers podcast. This podcast is for people who seek new and better ways to love and care for the earth. It's a podcast for anyone who is deeply concerned about the harm being done to the environment on a local and global level. It's a podcast that builds community and connection between people of like heart and mind, people who believe that Earthcare should be integrated into every aspect of life, and for many in the Earthkeepers community, that includes our spiritual lives. Welcome, friends, to the Earthkeepers podcast. Hey, Earthkeepers. As you know, one of the core principles of this podcast is the importance of listening to a wide diversity of voices. When we work together as a global community, we increase our capacity to do good for our own respective places and our ability to make change for the health of the planet as a whole. To that end, we have a special episode this week and a guest host from Uganda, Dr. Edward Olara. Now, you might remember Edward from last season when I interviewed him in episode 71. Edward was once a student of mine, but has since become a friend, and we've worked together in Uganda to encourage and empower development professionals. More recently, Edward has published a book called The Elephants and the Farmers. As the host of this episode, Dr. Olara will be interviewing a Ugandan friend and colleague of his, Mr. Victor Ochen. Mr. Ochen is the founder and executive director of the African Youth Initiative. He was born in northern Uganda, where he spent his first 21 years surviving a violent conflict that in the end displaced over 3 million people. In that conflict, the Lord's Resistance Army forcefully recruited or abducted 60,000 children to serve as soldiers, and among them was Mr. Ochen's own brother, who has never been returned. Since that time, Mr. Ochen has worked for peace and healing, especially for the victims of the war. Forbes magazine named him in 2015 as one of the 10 most influential men to give new hope for Africa, and in that same year, he became the youngest ever African to be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. More recently, he was awarded the Archbishop Desmond Tutu's prestigious African Young Leaders Award for his role in promoting the culture of dignity, peace, and reconciliation. Now, I could go on and on about this guy, but suffice it to say that it's a real honor that we get to hear his perspective on the podcast. If you want to know more about him, go to this episode's show notes at earthkeepers.online. For now, though, let's listen in on a conversation between these two friends as they discuss, among other things, the ways that poverty works against creation care and the hope that African youth represent for the world.
Welcome to the Earthkeepers podcast. My name is Edward Silas Olara, and I'm honored and privileged to be talking with my all-time friend and a brother indeed. And I would like to give him this opportunity. Can you tell our listeners briefly about yourself and your work?
Yes, thank you so much, Edward, for welcoming me to this fantastic discussion. It's my joy to be part of the initiative. My name is Victor Ochen. I am a Ugandan. I'm from a district called Lira, and I'm the director for African Youth Initiative Network, which is an NGO we started 19 years ago in the northern part of Uganda when we were working to support the population who were affected by violent conflict for years. So, a student leader, I'm not yet a qualified leader. I keep on learning. I call myself a student because I keep on learning. Yes. Leadership is a learning journey, and I'm involved in youth leadership development, in peace building, in human rights, issues of democracy governance. That means my work embraces from nature to policies to politics. I'm more inspired by what I see every day in our environment. So that's me.
Wonderful, fantastic. What are some of the specific work you are doing with the youth for all these years?
Well, as somebody who was born and raised in the northern part of Uganda, my life has been shaped by my childhood experience, growing up in war, surviving war, and mitigating the effects of conflict, not only in my own life, but also in the society. So my life has been about trying to transform my trauma, my pain, my suffering into an opportunity for leadership.
And I know this is very personal to you when we talk about healing. You've had your own healing to go through. I must tell the listeners that I've had the privilege to know you for many years. And I've followed your stories. It's amazing to see how you have evolved, how you've grown, and how you've touched many lives, even with your own story.
Yeah.
Often it's not good to keep going back to the painful, traumatic experiences, but just to give our listeners a bit of background of where you come from, I think it would be rewarding for us to know what are some of those mountains that you have climbed, especially when you were still a boy.
Yes, it's true. My history sometimes is too heavy, even for me to get to understand. Sometimes I look at that one, is that me or somebody else I'm talking about? But at the end of the day, like I said it earlier on, that I was born in conflict. I was raised in conflict. So I'm one of the witnesses of the historical injustices that has been through and survived worst episodes of violent conflict, from struggling for where we are going to sleep, to what we are going to eat, to what we are going to wear. We didn't have any anticipation, imagination what the future would look like, because we were not so sure if we would live to see the next day.
And you survived the LRA abduction as well.
Abductions came in, and abductions came in. People were taken. I saw my age mates, my friends, my family members. My own brother was taken by the LRA, and up to now he has not even come back. So these are the kind of things that we had to survive. So how I managed to make it is because I just decided that in as much as I saw it all, the injustice and violence that was going against me, I needed to be a reason for no more war, no more conflict. And I asked myself, where am I in the picture of peace, in the picture of change, in the picture of a society that is tolerant and inclusive? Because I saw war destroyed not only human lives. I saw war erased the dreams and aspirations of young people. I saw war environment were destroyed. I am one of the people who participated in so many struggles to make life to survive. So we had to sacrifice environment. Some families, I saw parents letting go their kids out of despair. Some kids or young people volunteered to become child soldiers. So these are the despair we went through. And then the struggle we had to go through to keep ourselves afloat in the sea of hopelessness and pain and torture and conflict. We needed to sacrifice so many things. And yes, I am happy that I am where I am today to tell the story of hope. And I thought that by working hard to transform my pain, my trauma, my suffering into an opportunity would be an opportunity also for me to help change the lives of those who are severely impacted, victims of war, those who have been sexually abused, raped, children who are burned, young people who are beaten, they are living in gunshots. So we've been doing medical and psychosocial rehabilitation for this kind of persons to help them heal, to regain their humanity, to regain their dignity. And to date, I'm proud to say that we have supported a minimum of 25,000 people from the greater northern Uganda who has been victims of rape, victims of torture, victims of burn and contractions. We have supported the return and the settlement of tens of thousands of former child soldiers. And we continue to support the families, those who are still missing. To date, we have over 30,000 youth and children who are taken as child soldiers, and they have never been accounted for. And nobody is giving accountability to the families, to the community, because I think the government is okay with the fact that the war is normal, but they have not moved deeper.
The victims of the war are not...
So my work in life has been, how do I ensure society heals, individuals heal, family heals, and our country heals?
Thank you. Wow. Now that plows into the problem of social justice and some of these painful experiences that people are still suffering from the trauma of the war. I would like to know, what connection do you see between social justice and the environmental justice? And what evidence, I know you have pointed out some here, and we'll still love to hear some more. If you can point out some evidence or examples that we have here in Uganda and Africa as a whole.
Uganda, like in other African countries, especially in the Great Lakes region, is a country that has been dominated by very painful episodes of historical injustices. But let me also be honest and say sustainable development is impossible in an equal society. Society where children are taught who their enemies are. That the reason for their suffering, the reason for the war, the reason for their homelessness is attributed to the next tribe. is attributed to the ex-leader, is blamed on the previous government. And that's really, we have a society that has been caught up in intergenerational transfer of trauma, of pain, of hatred. And that aspect of social injustice, which I would call it, has been the fundamental barrier to the prospect for a future that is inclusive, future that is tolerant, future that is sustainable. So these are the kind of things that, unless historical injustices have been addressed with intent to let go steam, we have to create a system or an environment or a government where there's an outlet for anger, for pain, for losses that people have incurred. But if we keep all this in, it's like a gas cylinder, We keep it fully tightened, we keep on pressing it, it eventually will, inevitably will blow up.
So what are you trying to say is that when people are mistreated and they are segregated, blocked from participation, and so they become poor, and so this is also a recipe for environmental injustice.
Exactly.
How do you make that connection?
Nature, Africa, like Uganda in particular, we're agricultural economy. It means we entirely survive on our environment for food production, for all sorts of development we work on. But if you have an eco society where people are forced to be poor, they can't go to school, youth doesn't have alternative, then you come up with probably 4 fundamental points where the young generations feels they don't belong. They feel targeted by the system because every time they try to express their grievances, the response is vicious from the authority. They feel unwanted. A generation that feels unwanted will want to reassert their power, their knowledge. And then the other thing is also, they feel targeted. When these 4 are happening, and not belonging, unwanted, targeted, sense of ownership is 0, then they have got nothing else left to lose. Recently, I was talking to the young who fled to Middle East, and I was telling them, don't give up on our country, even though you are unhappy. And then they said, Victor, we know you, we understand you, we identify with you. How can we not give up on a country that has given up on us?
Wow. So you feel their own country, their own government
has given up on
them. There's nothing in place.
Nothing in place for them
to take care of.
They're targeted, they're unwanted, they don't belong. They're singled out.
And also the repression.
It comes as a repressive system. They come back to now the issue of now people will say, what can I do for me to live? Like for me in case in particular, I grew up in war. We didn't have money. My parents didn't even have money to buy me a pencil. I studied burning charcoal.
So you were cutting trees.
I cut a lot of trees too. Unfortunately, shea trees. I grew up in the house built by shea trees. We were eating food being cooked by shea firewood. But also shea trees became the reason why I studied. I'm able to speak a bit of English today, engage with people like you, because of that shea support that I got. But of course, I destroyed the environment in order for me to see life. So in addition to that, people exploiting nature as the only alternative. Not that nature is supposed not to be exploited.
It's the only thing they have.
It's the only thing they have. Nature can be exploited, but controllably. We call sustainable consumption of nature. We grow food and eat it because we want to live, right? Not that we don't touch any tree because we want to protect the nature. Share could be a good opportunity, is a good opportunity, but have we done it sustainably? Have we done it in a way that is responsible, or we're doing it out of despair?
But also if the government had things in place, free education, people would not see the need to cut the trees. Plus, they would be a caution also. Now we are having people running away from their fields because of the climate change. Now they're running into the wetland to carry out agriculture because that's the only thing available. You were talking about social injustice. There are no jobs that these governments in Africa, in Uganda.
Uganda's government has tried its best, but there's still so much learning to be done by the government because it comes down to policies. We should not be struggling with kids inavailability or kids dropping out of school due to school fees or something. We shouldn't be struggling with parents unable to treat their kids when they're sick. But today you go sometimes to the government hospital, you find nothing. And then kids are dying because their parents can't afford $4 to treat them out of malaria. In the Uganda of today, we have children who are dropping out of school that can't afford to buy exercise books. we have the expense, the luxury life the government is living. I'm sorry to be brutally honest. It breaks my heart to see the amount of the lavish lifestyle the public
That the ministers and
living, and in a way
motorcades.
at the expense of the local population.
If I'm hearing you correctly, which I believe I am, you are touching onto the problem of the disconnect between the governing authorities and the people.
Yeah.
And this is a kind of disconnection that is like a broken record. We are now having everything going wrong, even in the environment. So without order, without law, without any plan for sustainability or for the future, it's a survival thing.
Yeah.
People just trying to survive with whatever resources are available. And this is the problem. And I know you have been working very hard to redress some of these problems in your own small way. With the youth, the other day you were telling me about some of the projects that you have going on in different regions.
How do we mitigate, or how do we empower society in the midst of the climate change crisis we are seeing, where we are looking for economic empowerment for the weak and the vulnerable in society, not only the weak, for everybody, but aware that the climate crisis is also on us. We are not going to claim that we are doing better. So we have had many ways of saying, in addition to peace building, we premise our engagement in one, let us make sure the society is secured, is tolerant, is inclusive. That's premise one. Then the second premise, let us support the young people to become economically independent. And then the third premise will be, can we enhance their access to resources, the startup capital that can help them go? And that's why, in addition to peace building, conflict resolution, human rights program, which is the foundation for coexisting in a society,
Exactly.
let us give them opportunity to own something. And that's why we have, as part of economic empowerment, we do training, do business innovation, business startups, and then also when there's a support financing. And right now we are running goats keeping. We have agricultural innovation hub, which we call it agricultural demonstration farm, right? Of which the demonstration farm, we already have one, which we are running with thousands of goats and sheep. Yes. But we want to off that, hopefully in few years or soon, we'll get a resource that can help us have 4 innovation hubs. When you get empowered young people who have a vision, who is built aspiration, who are inspired, they become a force for good. It's up to us to step in at the right time. Either we step in and redirect the pace of change by empowering them, making them feel they belong to a country that also loves them. The best energy for change, the best energy for development is not nuclear energy. It's not atomic energy. It's the energy of young people.
Wow. Right. So I see that one thing that's exciting that you've mentioned here is the mental empowerment, the training, that these young people, when they come to your programs, they are trained.
Yeah.
And do you enlighten them about the issues of climate change and environmental protection as well?
I think what is important is right now, climate change is part of our biggest picture of the training, because whenever we are looking at peace and conflict resolution, we need to look into the climate-induced conflict, the struggle for resources, struggle for water, struggle for grassland, for grazing cattle. One of the potential issues at hand is the tension with the climate-induced conflict. People are struggling for fertile farmlands. So if we have to tackle this, let us look at how do we support young people to know that in the midst of the heat of the climate crisis, we have an opportunity to regenerate
the same land.
Yes. Give it a chance. That's why we're doing what we're now engaging more is permaculture, helping young people learn how to recover the bare land to become green land for cattle keeping, green land for agricultural practices. And when you can address, if you can regain this land, do this regenerative agriculture and help regain the soil fertility, the water content, and catch the water, do all those things, we are going to prevent so many issues, conflict. We are going to prevent migration, and we are going to mitigate the climate-induced conflict. And you go to Addis Ababa today, is the city with the highest numbers of homeless people in Africa. I've never seen anyone in a city anywhere in the world which has got so many homeless people like what Addis Ababa is today. And then you ask, are they homeless because of conflict? That maybe 85% is due to climate.
Also related.
Yeah, it's climate.
Climate.
Yeah, people have moved away because their land, it has never rained for the last 5 years. Not a single grass, no support. It's unlivable. So people have to leave and move away. And now it's coming down. The last 2 years, the Kenyan government reported they lost so many elephants, so many animals were drying to death. There's no water, there's no grasses.
In this new season of the podcast, we are actually grappling with the question of how any job or any vocation can be made greener. And I know we've talked a little bit about this, and you mentioned that it must be policy driven. I don't know if you can add a little bit more on some of the views, some of the suggestions that can be made so that we can make our world a little greener.
To begin with, the road to clean energy is the dirtiest road, I can tell you.
Wow. Enlighten me.
Why I'm saying the road to clean energy is the dirtiest road is, look at, we're moving, European and American developing nations have moved down into batteries, car batteries, moving away from whatever we regard as fossil fuel, But then, where are we getting these batteries from? Where are we getting this advanced technology? Where are we getting the raw materials? They're coming mainly from DRC here. And what have we done for the Congolese people? These people are killed. They are sacrificed in order for our industries to thrive in Europe, in America, in Africa, in other places. So that's why I say the road to clean energy is the dirtiest road we have ever seen. And our generation must know that.
Now, the clean energy, as you were saying, it's coming at a cost. And this is human life, let alone our mineral resources. And who are the people behind this exploitation? We have leashes around our necks. Our governments have leashes around the necks. They can't stretch freely to do what they want to do because some corporation or some Western powerful government is interested.
Yeah.
And their way is the highway. And that, my friend, also keeps me awake at night.
With the climate bill, humanity is on trial. Humanity is on trial by nature, at the court of nature. And who is guilty? Our governments are guilty. Corporate worlds are guilty. Our industries are guilty. Our local populations are guilty.
Right.
Our politicians are even more guilty because they have the reason to stop this. I think sometimes we are lazy. I have to say that we, the young people, young Africans, are lazy sometimes because we are so lazy to trust that the government that has never been helpful to us in the last 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years will still be, maybe change their heart and become helpful to us. I think we are lazy in bringing the change because the more we attribute our fate, we outsource our future to fate, then we are lazy.
Or to foreign agencies to come and be our savior.
Yeah, we are being lazy. We need to reach a point where we stand up to challenge the status quo and make it known that, you know what, we are not here to be destructive.
Just want to build a future.
We want to build a future. We also want to live like you. If it's about living, we only want to live a fairly happy life.
We do.
Yeah.
You and I have healed from many things, physical, emotional.
And historically, we are struggling.
We have come a long way. And sitting here and listening to you as you lament about the poor governance and lack of visionary leadership in Africa and how Africa is hurting, there is need for that healing. And people who should bring this healing, forceful young people, and then also meaningful leadership or leaders themselves. I think I've tried to address that in my new book, that we need leaders who will come and serve our motherland, who will be servants of Africa, not looters,
plunderers,
and puppets of the West. We need the kind of leaders who will sell their soul to save Africa, to heal Africa. Now, moving forward, our podcast here, Earthkeepers Podcast, is founded on the belief that we need many unique perspectives in order to find ways to love and to care for the environment, and listening to different voices, different perspectives. Now, what is something that you believe African culture can teach or model for the rest of the world as a unique voice, as a unique perspective?
When I was a little boy, to me the world was on the brink of destruction. Everywhere I looked, I saw suffering. I saw pain, one more after another. And then I asked myself, I wondered if humanity would ever become one again. I was lost as a child, lost in the thinking, would it ever be one where we don't have to kill each other? But then when I asked Mom, my mother would always tell me, say, look, we're in the world of many people, many religion, many faith, many culture, many way of life. But it comes down to us accepting that we just don't know enough about everybody. I don't know enough about your culture. I don't know enough about your religion. But what you believe in is a learning opportunity. One thing that the world can learn from Africa is the heart of perseverance, heart of tolerance. A continent that has been so looted, been enslaved, been colonized, been plundered, and the way we Africans are treated today, different parts of the world still struggle to accept Africa as truly a human continent. Coming back to what Africa can teach the world, I think that's his sense of patience, his sense of tolerance, and the essence of inclusion. We have done as Africans, I think, even though we have been looted, we have been enslaved, we have been plundered, we have still remained open and we are coexisting with every other person. The suffering that we the Africans have been through has been too much, it's been unbearable, and we don't wish on any other human race anywhere, regardless of their locations. And that's the kind of spirit that we have.
So you are touching on the resilience of the African people and also the positive outcome of what we have endured that has actually made us better people, more loving, more tolerant of other people. We deal with crisis better, which means we can actually lead in championing the environment, the climate change, the fight against the climate change. So that gives me a lot of hope that good things can come from Africa and spread to the rest of the world.
We have challenges, but challenges sometimes are an opportunity for us to shine our brightest light. Can we have young people who are willing to understand and say that in the heat of darkness, of poverty, of injustice, of hatred, of division, in the darkness of marginalization and othering other people, can we be that brightest stars in the skies and deliver and shine the light of hope, the light of opportunity, the light of inclusion? Even though our generation were not responsible for the past and all the historical injustices of violence, of abduction, of killing, or even though we are not responsible for destroying the nature, even though we are not responsible for all these historical injustices, it is our responsibility to make sure it does not happen again.
Absolutely.
So,
and that we can preserve what we have now.
Preserve what we have now.
Regenerate what has been destroyed. Regenerate climate change.
And give hope to the future. I do think something that the world should learn from Africa is Africa has so much faith in humanity.
Absolutely.
And they have so much faith in the future.
We've been listening to a conversation between Edward Olara and Victor Ochen, men who work for both social and environmental justice, for their people and for the whole community of creation. To learn more about the work of these Ugandan Earthkeepers, go to the show notes for this episode at earthkeepers.online. I'm Forrest Inslee, your podcast host. Our executive producer is James Avedon, and our producer is Dave Olfers. Colleen Meggerly is our editor and researcher. Forrest Reed is the creator of our original music, and Jesselyn Gentry is our social media director. Thank you, friends, for listening, and please join us for our next conversation on the Earthkeepers podcast.